All right, another podcast from the Michigan Institute of Athletics in Brighton, Michigan. I'm super excited about this one. Joined by a good friend, a gentleman that's fought for this team multiple times. He has had a recent meteoric rise to success in his professional life. It's just going to be a great story. And I can't wait to hear, the foundational details that built him into the man that he is today. So, right before we get into it, I'm going to shout out VetLife. VetLife is a 501c3 nonprofit company. It's a company of veterans for veterans. Every veteran faces difficulties when they transition from active duty back to civilian life, and VetLife is there to ease that transition. If you want to reach out to VetLife, you can do so through Instagram or Facebook, or check out their website at vetlifetoday.org. So without further ado, Johanan Dixon, the man.
What's going on, man?
Man, a pleasure to have you here in the studio. We've talked about having this podcast for a while. You and I have had some tremendous dialogues on road trips and, fight trips and stuff. And we always kind of alluded to the idea that, man, we should really sit down and hammer out a podcast. I'm excited for it today. So you've seen a couple of my episodes. We're going to start yours the exact same way. We're going to go all the way back. Where was Johanan born and raised? What was the family unit like? What were the things that were influential to you as a young man? What did you think this life was going to have in store for you? Kind of build me the whole background story, and then we'll work our way up to modern times.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me, man. And our 7-hour trip went into a lot of different ways, so definitely excited about it. I grew up in High Point, North Carolina. If people aren't familiar, it's close to Greensboro, North Carolina. And I grew up in just, your typical southern Christian home, Bible Belt area. I'm the oldest of 4 kids, a brother and 2 sisters, so it's boy, girl. Sorry. Yeah, thanks. No I'll have to get used to talking through the mic. And just grew up coming through public school, playing a lot of soccer. Soccer was my sport of choice. I was short growing up, so that it made it. Basketball was a close second until I didn't grow, and so I just took on soccer and went up through the public school system until I was in 4th grade. And then my 4th grade teacher decided that I was a problem student, so she talked to my mom, and I guess my mom took her advice and put me into private Christian school. So went there. I had imposter syndrome there bad. It was a very wealthy Christian school, and we were not. I think at that time we were still buying from grocery stores that had the dented cans. Like we were tight, and then my parents were paying for this school somehow, and they were prestigious soccer state champs multiple times. I was very passionate about it, and that's kind of the direction I thought I saw my life going initially, was spend 4 hours a day training at soccer, get really good despite being incredibly small, and then hopefully get a college rise from there.
That's awesome. So let's talk about some of the factors that were in your story early on. So religion played a big role in your life early on. Were you fully bought in as a young man? Was the family structure kind of built around like the religious doctrine, or, just kind of, I came from a very non-religious home, like not practicing at all. I think my parents, or at least my father, might have said he was a Christian, but I don't think he was at church a single time my entire life.
Yeah, maybe for Easter or something.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we'd watch the movie that would always be on Easter with the 10 Commandments and Moses. That's about as religious as my family experience got. But, not only was there religion in your home, but then you ended up going to a private school, which would be like a Catholic Central, right? Mm-hmm. Like that would be the close. And Catholic Central is an absolute, beast school in this area. Their athletics are world class. Their programs are top notch, and they kind of have that unifying quality in their faith. You know what I mean? It kind of brings people together pretty well. What was the dynamic like for you as a young child trying to figure out the world? How do you think religion played a role? And then when you said you had imposter syndrome, was it just because of the financial level you were looking around and like, man, I don't really belong around these kids? And then like, how did that change over time?
Yeah. And for some reason, always the private religious schools have great sports programs. Ours was no different at all. I'll address the imposter syndrome first. It was a lot of financial. I was a big kid who liked brands, so North Face, Sperry's, whatever was the big thing. we weren't able to afford those. And that's not even, I mean, that's just tip of the iceberg. I had a student that I went to high school with. His dad had a private jet, and he had some patent on a piece of the iPhone or something. And so it was strange being around that. And I think that was more in my head. Kids notice that stuff, but my parents would, buy secondhand name brand stuff so I could kind of fit in with that.
So you found yourself in like a constant state of comparison, and that was probably robbing you of a lot of joy and a lot of like feeling good about yourself, which I actually look at today's society and I see these kids that are, stuck on Instagram and TikTok, and they're constantly evaluating their life versus what they see somebody else's life, which is not even their full life. It's like their highlights, and they're almost in this constant state of, man, my life is not nearly as good. You were experiencing a form of that from a young, immature mind, saying like, man, look at the things they get. Look at this. They're able to wear all the brands I wish I could. Like, I don't belong with these people. Not realizing that like your character and stuff is tremendously more valuable than the brand shirt that you put on.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about into the religious side though. Did the religion in your home shape your family unit or the way that you were raised, or was it really just, a part of growing up?
Yeah. It definitely was. My parents were by the book. Like, father leads, what mother follows. I think even early on, my dad was tithing 10%, regardless, 10% whether we could afford it or not. Now, eventually that changed because, Christians have a way of looking at the text, especially if it's something like that, and being like, is that more of like an esoteric number than 10%? Like, do we really need to give 10%? But yeah, my parents, mom and dad were just that way. Like, anything that the Bible said about parenting, that's how things went. And then, being in a Christian school as well. So like, we had church at school as well. So like Wednesday we had chapel, and then Saturday sometimes we volunteered at the church. Sunday morning was church, and then evening was church. So it was just like, for some people, like where you grew up, that's seems extreme, but that seemed pretty normal. Oh, and then we had small groups, I think is what they called them, where other couples would get together and read about the Bible. So that was like 4 to 5 days a week.
So your family was all in because,
Oh, yeah.
and that's what I was trying to dig into in that part of your story, because I don't have any experience with anything like that. But there probably is something really good about that unifying quality between people where, like you just said, small groups, you're going to naturally have this community of people that are all based around the same ideology, which is going to bring people together. And it's almost like there's this blueprint for how to do things laid before you to kind of sort through the chaos of the world. Like, when you look back with the lens that you have now, would you say that, religion being in your home was actually beneficial to you, even if you rebelled it, teenage years or something like that? Because I'm someone that is constantly reflecting on my past and constantly trying to pull lessons from things. And I always wonder, for people that had like a given value system or way more structure, even if at the time it's a little bit like, why do we have to do this? It probably is a great foundation to build your character, from a young age. What do you feel like with having that kind of blueprint for success? Do you value the way that you were raised, and are you doing the same with your children now? Is faith a big part of raising your kids?
That's a good question. Yeah, I value how I grew up. When I look back on it, I'm starting to be more introspective and reflective on my past, because I realize we're not going to live forever. So, like, learning things from your past, you have a huge example of what you've done so far in the results. But, yeah, it was good. I don't necessarily know if I agree that that's how I want to raise my kids.
If we could dig into that a little bit,
Yeah.
because, you and I know each other very well. We're friends. It's easier to talk about things like religion and politics and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
What were the things that you feel were kind of the negative aspects of it? And what were the things that you're like, there was a lot of value in this aspect of it, if you're willing to divulge that information?
Yeah. So positive things were just, having a group or community working towards a common goal. If you're getting really practical, the gym provides that. Like, people here have a community, have like-minded people, and then people that are further along that they would like to aspire to be. And in church, that kind of goes, in my opinion, it goes like this person is further along in their walk with God, whatever that means, or this person is a very holy person, whatever that means. And it's cool because you get to look at people and kind of structure your life, and then it gives you guidelines on, you know, what you do, where you put your money, what you believe in, your core beliefs. But I mean, it's tough, and it's really cliche to say that the church and the hypocrisy of people in the church kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, and it left me looking back like, okay, I really need to figure out if this is what I believe or if this is just a group of people that believed a thing, and I was born into that group of people. And that's one of the things that's really hard about religion is it's very black and white. Everything that's in the Bible, regardless of people's inability to answer X, Y, and Z question about was the Bible influenced heavily by men with alternate or ulterior motives. Like you mentioned about having a community kind of doing good things in a general sense. Like there's been people that have said, hey, like maybe leaders over time in the Catholic Church or big organizations are like, this would be a lot easier if everybody kind of followed one path. So let's add this into this book. And that's tough for me because there's like this podcast, the gray area. Everything's gray. There are black and whites. There are truths. There's not. We talked about the your truth thing, but there's a lot of nuance that I think gets lost in the church. And when I joined the Marine Corps, I was very good at it because I knew how to like follow directions. But when I got out, I realized I have no idea why I believe the things that I do. I have no idea why I'm doing these things. I'm just doing them. And that's really important for me moving forward, is to figure out my why. And if that does align with the church, great. I want my son to be able to make that decision over time, me lead him and be like, I think this is the direction that I'm going to take my life, and I want you to take yours, but please ask questions, because otherwise you're just going to follow me, and you're going to end up with a lot of resentment when you realize you didn't have necessarily the right thing given to you all the way through your childhood.
The way that you just explained that is really eye-opening to me, because I remember when I was a child, the reason religion never clicked with me is because I've just always been a critical thinker. For some reason, I think it's because you've heard my story, but like I had moments where my world just got shattered so much and all my stories got shaken up. So it made me like really want to set a foundation in what's real and what's tangible and what's provable, and like I cared about reality very much, and I cared about the truth very much. I didn't want illusions to be shattered. And when I would try to get critical questions answered in my mind that I needed to be able to answer, like you said, the X, Y, and Z, it's like I need to know this, and I could never get those answers. I would always get like, you just have to have faith, you just have to believe. I'm just not a person that's like that, because then it's completely down to the direction of the people telling me what to believe. Someone could sit next to us right now and say, well, I know there's aliens, you just have to believe. Mm-hmm. I know there's extraterrestrials or interdimensional beings, you just have to believe. Well, I'm not just going to believe. I need to see evidence. I need to see a reasonable explanation that points me in that direction to yield that result in my mind. Like, I don't do very well with authority at all, and I know you don't do well with authority either. Yeah. A lot of the times because I cannot blindly follow things. If you tell me to do something and I understand the reasons that I'm doing it, and maybe it's just respect. Maybe it's just, when I was younger, my father ruled a little bit through fear. If he said to do something, I did it. Not necessarily because I always believed in it, because I'm like, you know what? He's my father. I respect him. I don't want the consequences of not respecting him, so I'll do it. But any other time, the reason I struggle with authority is like I have to believe in what I'm doing. I'm not able to do things that I don't believe in, like to a character flaw, to the point where if the governor of the state says you are going to do this and I can't match up why it makes sense to do that, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. And, a lot of the times I can't believe I didn't find myself in worse situations growing up, because I don't care if something's a law. I don't care if we've established a certain law in this country. If there's a law that is fundamentally wrong or that I disagree with extremely, I'm not going to be able to follow it. And that makes me like a very bad citizen. And it's a very slippery slope, but it's also a very eye-opening, I don't know what I'd call it, empowering thing. Because all of the decisions I make, I have to have reason for. Well, when you're not just blindly steering a ship and you control your smaller decisions, it really impacts the course of your life. So one of the things that I always found with religion is whenever I tried to get the really pivotal questions answered, like I'd look someone in the face and be like, how do you know there is a God?
Yeah.
Don't use the word belief or faith or anything like that. What experiences have you lived through that, tells you that? I could never get concrete answers. And, I would get like, well, I've spoken to him. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, as a kid, I'm a little smart ass. Like, did you call him? Did you text him?
Yeah.
Did you set a meeting? Like, what do you mean? Well, no, it was in my head. Well, that's your imagination. I could never get those pivotal questions answered. So I just never pursued that path. But you know what's super bizarre? That's been only happened to me in the last couple of years. Witnessing society struggle the way that it has, and witnessing like the mental health crisis, and witnessing a lot of bad things that I think are taking place across culture. I actually almost see more of a place for religion than I ever have my entire life, because I'm like, dude, it at least provides a fundamental structure of morality, of faith, of unity, of all of these things that actually, if they were like tenets of society, it's a much better thing. Like, and we're gonna get back to your story in a second because I don't want to go too much on a tangent, but like,
let's go.
And people are gonna hate. People are gonna hate what I'm about to say, and I'm probably gonna get tons of. Look at the way that our culture is like propping up. Young girls want to grow up to be OnlyFans models now. Kids want to find a way to influence people on Instagram, even if it's saying and doing terrible things. Even if it's, I'm getting a little static too. I don't know if we touched a chord or something, but.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good on my side. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to restart this statement because I think this is important. Young girls are looking up to like OnlyFans models that are getting paid to, do whatever they do. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the platform, but I'm familiar that it exists.
Take pictures of their feet, probably.
Who knows? Yeah. And you have kids that are looking up to celebrities that are just incredibly polarizing figures, or you have people that will say anything just to get reactions, even if they might not even fully believe in themselves. And you have a culture of people now looking up and be like, oh, man, like, look at that person getting attention. Look at that person making money. That's what life should be. And I'm looking at this going like, for the first time ever, as a non-religious person, I'm like, you guys need Jesus. Like what are you doing? Yeah. The direction you guys are taking your lives is not the right answer. And they might be like, well, women especially are probably going to hate this part of the podcast because they're like, oh, I'm empowered. I can do whatever I want. You absolutely can. But then I can also view you accordingly. And if you were my wife, or if you were my daughter, or if you were my sister, I'd be like, man, you have way more value than selling yourself online for other people's momentary pleasure.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Is money that valuable? Is money more important to you than who you are?
I think a lot of people assume that when you're judging them, it's that you're judging the fact that they're showing themselves. But for me, like, okay, so if you take everything else out, you take the cameras out, you take everything out completely, and you're just a fly on the wall with somebody put their clothes back on. Now you're for a living, you're just laying on a bed talking to something that's transmitting a picture somewhere else. So you're really, like, if you take everything else away, you're just laying on your bed for a living. And, like, you are worth more. You're worth a hell of a lot more than that. And it's not that, everybody disagrees about how to live life. It's a thing that we're always going to struggle with. I'm not going to judge anybody because I don't have any room to do that. But you can go create amazing things with the time that you're spending just sitting on your bed.
Well, and honestly, there's so many unbelievable skills that you could learn in the world. There's so many ways that you can make an impact. There's so many ways that you can transcend being a normal person and like really become like a leader or an influential person, or you can change the lives of countless people around you, or you can bring positive energy to the world that is desperately needed, or you can help with all of these young struggling kids that are considering suicide and, like I said, are crippled by anxiety. But you have to bring that to life. And that's going to come with difficulty. That's going to come with struggle. And that's going to come with extreme personal growth. It's almost like I just feel like so many people are being misguided. Mm-hmm. They're being made to believe that, like, hey, you can do this. And this is fine. And you know what? You can. You absolutely can spend your life as an OnlyFans model. Men, you can spend your life cheating and stealing and doing terrible things, and you can probably become successful. But always, for the rest of your life, you're going to have to live with the person that you are. And you're going to have to, if you ever reflect on your life, you're going to have to look at all of the things you could have been, all of the greatness you could have brought to life, all of the impact you could have made on your family and your friends and your community. And you're going to have to give all that up because you didn't pursue that route. You did what society said was acceptable. If we wound the clock back to when we were growing up, let's just say, I'm a little bit older than you, but we went back and we said, hey, your mother is considering a career where instead of doing this, that, or the other thing, or taking care of the kids or anything like that, she's going to get online, get naked, and sell herself to anyone willing to pay.
Yeah.
We would all be devastated by that.
We'd be like, can you look at that on Motorola Razors?
And you would be devastated.
Yeah.
If you found out that your mother or your sister or someone you cared about was going to do that, you'd be like, no, there's a million creepy, terrible, horrible people in the world. Like, no, you're better than that, Mom. Do not do that.
Yeah.
Mom, if you want to be like earning money and like being out in the world, like 100%, let's build something together. But like, why would you do that? And it's almost like the moral compass of society has shifted so dramatically where now it's like celebrated. You know what I mean? There's fathers that are encouraging their daughters to go be strippers. That's happened. Yeah. I'm so proud of her. She's empowered. Man, I just disagree fully. You know what I mean? And the beauty is, it's your life. It's your existence.
You know what? I'll push back on that because I disagree too. But if they're choosing to do that and create greatness and do both, like what you were saying earlier, do what you want. But like, don't. I have a tattoo that says the wealthiest place in the world is the graveyard because everybody dies with talents and abilities and skills that they never used. And if that person's doing both, fine by them. But like that, as a dad, on a practical sense, you're teaching your daughter not to ever try to learn anything. And her body is going to get older and she's going to age and she's going to have to deal with the fact that people aren't going to want to watch that anymore. And at that point, she's really going to have to look in the mirror and be like, okay, what do I do now?
Let's say your wife wants to start an OnlyFans, Johanan. Or she wants to go be a stripper. She's empowered. She's going to make good money. It's her body. Don't tell her what to do with it. You're telling me you're not going to feel like, wait, what? We got 2 little kids, right? Like, you're going to tell me your thoughts. Because you pushed back on that, I'm pushing back to you.
Yeah.
Jan decides she wants to go on OnlyFans or she wants to be a stripper. She's going to go work in Detroit on the club. She can make more money than being a state police officer.
Yeah, I don't think that's tough. She's a woman that I would never tell what to do, but I would tell her I'd have a problem with it. And not only because...
Why do you have a problem with it? It's her choice.
Because I have friends and I have colleagues and I have people that know us.
So you see what I'm saying? You feel the effects of like, man, like, yeah, that does exist. And yeah, that is your choice. Yeah. And yes, you can make money that way. There's a lot of rich, perverted, terrible people that will throw money at you if you're willing to do things, especially if you're willing to degrade yourself. And the deeper you go, the probably more, crazy people are out there willing to pay for things like that.
Yeah.
But to me, all the way to my core, I'm going to be like, no, don't do that. You are worth more than that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree that they're worth more than that. But at a certain point...
But how do we even say that? How do you even say, like, you're worth more than that when in their mind, it's like, I'm doing what I want to do. You should encourage me to, take on the power that I want. But I'm telling you, it puts a feeling in your chest. Just as I presented it back to you, because you pushed back, I said, okay, Jan wants to do it. You feel it. And you say, man, I don't want that for my wife. I don't want that for the mother of my children. I don't. It's easy to say, yeah, go ahead and do that when it's a stranger. When it's some random woman that we don't know saying, hey, live your best life, until it's knocking on your door. Until it's your daughter that says, Dad, I don't really want to learn any skills and, develop myself. And I'm going to sit online and old dudes are going to pay me money to do whatever they want to do. You're not going to appreciate it at all. So for as much as we want to say, like, live your truth and, be the person you want to be, unfortunately, in my mind, that feeling is never going to go away from me. I don't care how society changes. I don't care if we get to a point in 50 years where there's no moral compass in the nation at all, and people are like, hey, prostitution is the easiest way out there for women to make money, so you should just grow up to be a prostitute. We're not that far from that, Johanan. There's a lot of people in this culture right now pushing that like prostitution should absolutely be a thing that women should be able to do across the country. And if that were to get legalized in more places, you will have a whole group of men and women being like, absolutely. Why do it for free? Go make money. Get that bag. And man, I'm going to be adamantly, vehemently against that.
Me too.
Because I just don't believe it's moving our society in the direction of a healthy culture. I don't.
So do you think it should be not legal?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do. I believe, I mean, certain things you can't make, like, I don't think OnlyFans should be illegal. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that looking back at our past, there was different standards of, like, a moral code. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that, I think, actually came from religion. And as I've gotten older, as bizarre it is for me to say, because my entire life, if you talk to anyone, I've been non-religious. Call me agnostic, call me whatever you'd like. It's not even like I'm atheist. It's not like I'm saying I have no belief that there's a power bigger than myself. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is I haven't known my whole life and I haven't dedicated any energy or effort to it. But I've witnessed our society cripple, in my opinion, to let's call it a lower vibration, lower moral code, lower standards, honor, integrity, loyalty, trust, character. These things have been eroded dramatically. And when I see these different avenues of society being propped up and supported, in my opinion, they're part of the erosion. You know what I mean? So it puts me in a very strange dilemma because the progressive mind wants to say, like, yeah, do what you want to do. Be empowered. But at the end of the day, look at the way that you felt as soon as I presented the question when it was someone you love. We got to realize if you genuinely want to help people across society and it hits you that hard when it strikes at home, if you start supporting that ideology, one day it will be your daughter. Go ahead, change the culture in a way that they think, so that culture says like, oh, that's great. You should grow up to be a prostitute. And then your daughter says, but Dad, it's progressive. I'm empowered. I'm allowed to do this. It's not against the law, Dad. I'm going to go be a prostitute. And you know what? I'm going to make money. You would be like, no, you're not. Or not on my watch. So you see what I'm saying? It starts to become an extremely slippery slope if we support things that are not what we would want for people we love. Why would we make society and an image any different than what we would do for people that we care about? Is it just once it's outside of our doors, it doesn't matter? As long as it's separated enough from your family, then it's okay. No, it's not okay.
Yeah, and that's tough because social media, you said 20 years ago, and I was like, that's right when we started to kind of see this tech boom, and I just don't know if we're equipped emotionally and mentally to deal with, hey, I have the ears of millions of people now, and I get to see what millions of people are doing. And in the past, you had pretty stark consequences for
your character, and your reputation really mattered when we were growing up.
Yeah,
like, and you protected it, right? Yeah. Like the people that knew you, you wanted them to see your best because it wasn't such a massive world. There wasn't 60 million voices you were trying to appease. It was like, hey, does my father think I'm a good child? Do my friends think I'm a good man?
Yeah, and that was real life. And now it's like people have decided that is less consequential than when you are ready to take your Instagram photo for the day. That's when you put on your best face. And it's like traded. Instead of being able to go online and just, MySpace or whatever it was, and it was kind of cool. Now it's like that's real life. That's where I have to have my best foot forward. Here I don't. Here I can not say hey to people in the grocery store, not care. I can do TikTok challenges where I'm peeing in the soap dispensers, like all these things that are just affecting real people, but those aren't the people's opinions and eyes that you want. The ones that you want are the 60,000 followers that probably follow you for some reason or don't even know that they follow you. They just liked one picture at one time. And it's It's crazy.
And it's like you said, it's not real, right? Like there was a couple people in this gym that I've had to sit down at one point in time and like try to change the direction they were heading, because like one of the people, I won't say who it was, but he was always just posting the most outlandish, like far-reaching, messed up shit online, like memes that were just, you're almost like, how in the world could you post that? But it was just because he was getting attention. He was getting a reaction. He felt valued by some people because people would like it or laugh at it or whatever. And I had to literally sit him down and go, bro, they're laughing at you. They're almost laughing that you're the person that's willing to throw that stuff online.
Yeah,
and
you're a meme.
You're a meme.
Yeah.
And you know what? You can call it dark humor. You can call it whatever you want. Is that what you want to bring into this world? Do you want to be just the laughing stock or the jester of the court? You know what I mean? The class clown, whatever it is. You are getting away from being the man that you know you should be, but you're getting some attention for it. Don't seek attention. If you seek attention versus seek to become what you would value, it's going to lead you astray, because attention wants all kind of different things. They want you to be all, you know what I mean? If I, you know, and this is probably going to get people mad too, but if I cross-dressed and put a video online, it'd probably be my most viewed video ever.
It would.
It would, without a doubt. Why? Because it would be so abnormal. It'd be so strange. It would be shocking. It would catch your eye and go, what in the world is James doing? Where did that come from? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it could create extreme attention. But why would I do that? If I value myself and I value who I am and I value what I'm building and my legacy and my story, who gives a shit about a momentary spike in attention? What does that matter?
Yeah.
What does that do for me?
And it kind of goes back to like what grabs people's attention. Like Dana White talks about, the reason the UFC is so successful is because no matter what other sports are being played, if a fight breaks out, everybody's going to watch it. And I may know the person you're talking about. I've certainly seen a lot of people like that. They're not like that in real life, because that's one, it might be funny once or twice, but if you in real life interactions had a 3 or 4 hour party and they were doing that the entire time, it would lose steam. It would like lose its niche kind of thing that's going on there. Whereas, you know, on Instagram you can hop on and be like, oh, that was like a cool hit of dopamine, like that was funny, I'll like that, and then you move on, and that was just like the quirky thing that you saw that you thought caught you off guard.
And even likes and stuff are dangerous, because you start to value your content or what you share based on the number of interactions it gets. And you're like, oh, when I made this face or I did this thing, I got this many likes, so I need to do that again. And like, it's almost going to turn you into a zombie. It's like the social media is shaping you instead of you shaping your social media. It's almost like going to lead you down a road of what gets people's attention, what snaps the zombies out of their state for just a moment where they can, you know, where they like this photo or they share this thing. And that's a dangerous road to go down. Like those TikTok challenges and all that crap, I am fascinated by that. That's like a phenomenon that when someone does one thing, it's just this wave effect where all of these people have to follow in the same trend. And I'm like, to me, it's like a hive mind. It's like one idea came out and it just goes across the board. And half the influencers that I witness online, one person, let's say 0.0001% of people drop something original, drop something incredibly creative, incredibly insightful, something that's inspiring. All these leeches grab onto that. They just make their version of it. They put it out there, and then they just find the next thing, find the next thing, find the next thing.
You know they're selling out arenas? You know they sell out arenas?
With what?
The TikTokers?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, I was watching.
For what?
Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura have a podcast called Two Bears, One Cave, and one of the guys from Impractical Jokers came on, and he said the same arena that he sold out, a TikToker, influencer, sold it out. He said the problem is once somebody has seen them live once, they lose interest. They don't want to come back and do it anymore because they're like, oh, they don't really have talent. They're talented at putting together these things in 30-second
when you said it,
manners.
When you said it, I'm like, what would you be going to see?
Right. Yeah.
What's the appeal? Why would you go to see a TikTok influencer? They filmed or shot something that was designed to engage you and edited and put together and fake people like actors that are playing a gold digger is surprised that man doesn't want her, whatever it is. It's complete fake. It's not real. It's a farce that it's a facade. And you're just engaged with it for a 30-second period until you go to the next, and you go to the next.
And you and I don't value that, but people value that enough to not only spend their money, but their weekend going to something like that. Like, we would go to
But if you go to a concert, you're going to listen to a set of songs that was composed and built and put together, and it has energy and feeling. What are you going to see because someone is an influencer on social media? I can't even wrap my brain around that. Like, when I walk in the door to it, what am I expecting?
Skits, I guess. I really don't know. But, like, I know that when they were talking about it, they were saying, hey, like, they will get a lot of people to come because they want to see it. And then they saw it. And then a lot of the magic was gone, and they don't come back.
Yeah, I just don't get it. Like, are you going to act out skits on stage? Are you going to recreate your best moments? Are you just going to talk to the fans? Are you going to, like if I go to a comedy show, I'm going to listen to funny jokes.
Yeah.
I'm going to hear a funny take on the world.
And they're going to deal with hecklers. It's all live.
It's all live.
Yeah.
I'm going to see real talent. If I go to a concert, I'm going to witness these incredibly talented musicians that are affecting me with their music. If I go to a panel discussion with these incredible experts, I'm going to get insight onto really deep topics. What the hell am I going to get from an influencer? You know what I mean? Because 99% of the time, anyone I've ever interacted with that's like in any way a social media influencer, or like some of the people in this building in the past have had a couple 100,000 followers, they're not at all in person like what they present online. You are not witnessing who they are.
Yeah.
You're witnessing this like, have a great day. I love everybody. The world is great. I'm the hardest worker in the world, blah, 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 blah. The second that camera switches off, that's not reality. That's not who they are. That's not how they treat people. That's not even their energy. Their energy is drastically different than the energy that they're putting in that one video.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
I've seen people like clean up their room to take their picture, and instead of folding their clothes, they just toss them in the corner. Like,
and maybe that's the beauty of this, is it's turned the whole world into just a stage.
Yeah.
When I went and just got on TV, I was on TV with the show called Mind Matters with Dr. Michelle. It's a Detroit television show. I was on it not too long ago. And I went down to Detroit, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be sick. Like, we're going to be on TV. She's a host of a network show.
Yeah.
It was in like it looked to me like a broken down old building. We walked in, the most low caliber, I mean, not nice, whatever. We walk around the corner. If the camera lens was any wider, it was like this old raggedy ceiling, but the exact shot that you were seeing was this unbelievable looking studio, beautiful furniture, couple televisions placed properly, lighting was on point. There was all these different lighting points.
Yeah.
That's what you look through the filter and see. So you'd almost imagine that I'm in this beautiful building in this studio and it's prestigious. Man, it could have been a garage at someone's house that one particular wall was set up to look great.
Yeah.
And that was a big shock to me. I go, wow, the illusions that people believe in. And that's what you're seeing through all these social media influencers. You are seeing illusions of life.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people, at least the ones I've met, they're not even really happy outside of the life that they present online. Like when I witness their true quality of their life, the quality of their friendships, their relationships, their psychology, because I get to see these people, there's a massive disconnect. Mm-hmm. And that's like, wow, that's shocking.
It's almost like a predatory function of social media where us as humans, we crave dopamine. And it's like, oh, we know how to give you dopamine in small hits to just, if you're sitting on your couch, and I was going to mention this about the TikTokers, like when you go, that's your whole experience. But social media is an escape from you sitting on your couch eating Cheetos. And like, you're like, oh, that was great. Like, good one. But then when you get there and you're like, it's real life, it's not the exciting part of your day because you're there for a show. You're there for something real. Whereas on your couch, you're just sitting there and, that's better than what you're doing right now.
You just hit on something huge where it's like, it's almost making the reward system in our brain that's so hardwired so easy to access that why in the world are you going to go through some super difficult venture and some quest on becoming a version of yourself that you're nowhere near to achieve this great, incredible feat in your life, whatever that may be, when you can get fulfillment every 1 minute by swinging your thumb and just engaging in this momentary little bit of entertainment. I bet you half the time people are zoned out to the degree that if you said, hey, the video you watched 6 minutes ago, tell me about that video. Really break it down.
They do that. They do. They'll do like quizzes on like reels every once in a while. It'll be like, do you remember seeing this post? And I'll be like, no. It's like it passed on my screen, and I may have interacted with it even, and I don't remember it at all. And it's just, I don't think people are comfortable putting us in the same category as lab rats. But I remember reading about this study, and I'm going to butcher it, but the rats would, if they pressed a button, they would get a small bump of cocaine to eat or something like a really attractive stimulant. And after a while, they realized they would just like hit it, and they would kill themselves with the cocaine based off of it. And it's just like, no matter how deadly that is for them, they were like, if I do this, then I get this. So like influencers, they're like, if I do this, I'll get this many. And there's coaches now on social media platforms that are like, hey, if you post every day and it's this style of content, you'll get this many followers. Subscribe for more of my content, And it's just like, do you know who Bo Burnham is?
No.
He was a comedian that kind of started out on YouTube, and he's got an interesting style of comedy. He's really musically inclined, and so he ties that in with his comedy, but he also speaks a lot of truth. And his last special on Netflix was just him during the pandemic by himself for 6 months, or however long it was, months by himself, didn't talk to anybody, and filmed this. And the way that he was like describing what our reality actually looks like, I always like to say, if your phone was like a piece of wood, and you realize how much you interacted or rubbed that piece of wood or kept that piece of wood with you at all times, it would be disturbing to watch. But because we justify it with that's a portal into this reality, we're like, oh yeah, like we live with it, we sleep with it, we wake up, this is the first thing we do, we take it to shower with us, we can't go anywhere without it, we don't even know how to get around our own cities without it now. It's crazy.
You just had a light bulb go off of me to the fullest, where I've been wondering why in the hell we've been slipping away from truth and critical thinking and reason, and like it's angered me a lot. Like if I can't have a dialogue with you that's centered around the truth, or we're not searching for meaning in something, or you think my truth is real, like that's going to take us down a really dangerous road, because the truth is the truth, and it's our job to be kind of close to it. When we're living our lives through a portal where everything is objectively not the truth, or it's a presentation of things, right? Like it's, like I said, that building that I was in was nowhere near what it was presented to be. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't we get detached? Why wouldn't we become delusional? We genuinely believe that all these things we're watching are real life. And it's watered down a lot of things. Every Instagram influencer now is also a strength conditioning coach. And people are asking about my new routine, so I'm going to show you blah, 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 blah.
And they got their Gymshark gear on, click the link. And
exactly. And if you use this code, then da, 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 da. And like, it's like, it's watered down real expertise. Like if I want to hire a strength and conditioning coach, I want them to be world class. I don't want them to have watched a couple videos and maybe they have some followers and they have a certain image and their face is shaped a certain way and their butt looks a certain way and a thing. And now all of a sudden people are like, that's the coach to follow. That's not the coach to follow. The coach to follow is the one that's dedicated to the craft, that has learned it, that has progressed, that has so much valuable insight from years of beating on that craft. But nowadays, if they can't create the content in the right way, they're going to get blown out of the water by the 20-year-old man or woman that looks a certain way, that says, the way I built this perfect body is from this, subscribe to my thing and I'll teach you how. And it's like, maybe you're just 20 and your body is already built great and it's genetics, but yet you've convinced people that you have the key to what they need to get to the next level. It's watered down a lot of different industries.
You're one of the rats that refuse the cocaine because you knew it's bad for you, though. There's not many that do that. I would wager to say that most don't. I have a hard time with it because, I I grew up through that reality from middle school on. Like, the iPhone was a important part of social structure, and they know what they're doing. I mean, they're integrating it so heavily that professionally, I cannot not have a smartphone. I cannot not have a LinkedIn and a Facebook. Like, as soon as you get it tied in professionally or to deeper extents within your family, like, it's in. Like, it can't.
And it's already
be
in.
undone.
Smartphones
Yeah.
are not going anywhere. Everybody is already addicted to it to the fullest. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it might have started out as just a tool to connect people, and maybe it was just a platform to try to bring people together. But it is turned into a portal into a fake reality that we're all getting sucked into. And unfortunately, the angry voices, the pissed off people, the super polarizing figures, people that are willing to be outlandish, people that are on every spectrum, racists or women willing to strip down naked or men willing to do terrible things or say terrible things. Those are the voices that get amplified because it catches your attention more. What is going to really capture your attention about just a good man or a good woman living their life correctly, showing like an average day? You know what I mean? It's not going to captivate you at all, and it's not going to get amplified. And maybe that's why media companies and stuff have leaned so heavily into amplifying the screaming, insane lunacy that they have, because makes sense. How else do you capture people's attention nowadays? If the media wasn't doing what they were doing, they'd probably completely crumble to the ground. They would be nothing, because they cannot compete with TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and et cetera, et cetera. Like, I never even downloaded Snapchat, not once ever, never. Even TikTok, I downloaded it because everyone here kept being like, you should make a gym TikTok where the fighters basically like talk about leading up to fights. It's like a fight camp TikTok, and I was like, maybe. I've never used the app once because I was like, I just feel like I'm going to open myself to a whole nother area, a time suck, an energy suck.
Yeah.
And like, honestly, besides these podcasts, I don't like social media other than I have to use it as a tool to bring people together, to inform people. What I like is shaking your hand and we have lunch together. I like road tripping with my friends. I like having genuine interactions with people that I love. I love sitting outside and throwing the ball with my dog. You know what I mean? But it's like the next generation, those things, they don't hold the weight or the value. Like, Braden lives for Mr. Beast videos and the next reel. And now the metaverse. He's been going into the Oculus, and there's a game that he plays called Monkey Tag. This kid is in an alternate universe. Like, he's in our living room. He moves all the stuff out of the living room, and me and Stacey would be in the kitchen, like, sitting down and eating. And he's got the headset on. He's just in his own world. His body's moving. He's talking to people. He's interacting with, there's a ton of people in this game at once. He's talking to all these different people. They have little avatars that they're in. He's moving his body, but he's not really moving his body. You know what I mean? And he is completely immersed in the experience. Yeah. And I'm like, how far are we from that taking over? From that world being more enjoyable than this world? Because the kids aren't going to have the social skills. They don't have the ability to walk up to a stranger and introduce themselves, and they don't have a lot that they stand upon that they're proud of because they're in a constant state of comparison. They're like, wow, I don't really have a lot to offer. I'm not an influencer. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm not. Why don't I just live in this world? I can be whatever I want to be.
But I'm ranked this in the world at, what's the game he plays? Fortnite? Yeah. We kind of live in I was going to say this earlier, and then get back to your point. We kind of live in an alternate reality here in America. Name one other place where we have overweight, homeless people with $1,000 phones.
It is super bizarre because I've traveled. I've been to Senegal. I've been to the slums in Brazil. I've seen China, some of the worst living conditions I've ever seen. The way that the people were living in China, it was almost like, this is not human. This is subhuman conditions. Yeah. What people think they have bad in America is a fragment of what I'm looking at right now. And yet we have probably the biggest mental health crisis I've ever seen. We have people crippled by anxiety. We have kids that can't make a phone call. I had two kids in here, a boyfriend and girlfriend. I'm not going to say their names. They had came into class during the jogging warm-up of jiu-jitsu. We went to do a certain pass or something down the mat. They got so overwhelmed that they were embarrassed that they might not be able to do it correctly. They both had to leave the mat. And I went over and talked to him, and I'm like, are you all right? Is everything? Yeah, it's just my anxiety, da-da-da. left, never came back, never saw them again. Because they went to do one thing that they weren't going to be great at in front of a group of people, got red-faced. The color of this mouse, had to leave the mat and never returned because of how terrified they were at not being good at anything. And I'm like, what will that lead to? Because I tell you what, to get good at anything, I've had to suck at it first. Mm-hmm. Dude, I was a horrible business owner until I got better at it. I was a terrible jiu-jitsu person until I got really good. I was a not good on a podcast until I became better at producing these. But you have to be terrible first. We're going to have a whole generation of kids that refuses to be terrible at anything, so they're going to have to live in their truth. They're going to have to live in their version of reality. They're going to have to put themselves in a state where they can only be comfortable in their surroundings and they're never bothered by anything.
Yeah. And that first level of resistance, like right on the other side of that, like when I did not want to fight at all when I had my first fight. I was nervous. I was like, am I going to be sick? You know, like
I saw it on your face.
It was crazy. But after I did it and I won, I was like, that is the coolest feeling in the world. But that first resistance that is indicative of everything that you're going to do in life, you're so close to feeling what greatness might feel like, or like a little taste of it. But that's enough to push people away. And then Facebook's just sitting there with a net. TikTok's just sitting there with a net. Be like, hey, come back over here.
You can feel good right here, buddy. Just swipe this video.
Yeah. We're going to get rid of the dislike button so that nobody is deterred from using our platform. You'll just have less likes, and, you know, people will eventually see it, and they'll decide that they like that too.
I was blown away by that.
Yeah.
Because there was some presidential addresses and some other things that were going on that were getting blown away with way more dislikes than likes, and it was showing real public opinion, or at least on that platform, public opinion, and they didn't want that. The idea is, no. You will not make anyone feel uncomfortable, and you will accept what we give you. But yet, when I questioned 2020, my video got taken down, and I got threatened that I would be banned for life if I violated again because I questioned what was taking place, which is hilarious now because we're sitting in 2022. Every single one of us can look back and ask a million questions, but you couldn't at the time. If you ask questions at the time and people are like, oh, yeah, you could. No, you couldn't. I tried to ask questions. You saw the video I put out. It got taken down, and I was contacted by YouTube saying that if you violate our terms of service again, you will be terminated from this platform. You'll be banned. I filed an appeal. They shut down the appeal. And it's like, wow, we're getting to a point where we can't even question certain things. And I think you can witness that across many facets of our society where even difficult conversation is being wiped out.
Yeah.
How in the hell are we going to make progress as people when we can't have difficult dialogue? If you have a crazy ideology, or you have a crazy belief system, or you say some outlandish shit, I'm supposed to question that. I'm supposed to say, what in the hell is that based in? What are you basing your assertions off of?
And you can. It just has to be questioning the right things. Because if you're questioning the wrong things, that's not allowed.
Honestly, there's a lot of wrong things, in my opinion, that need to be questioned. Did you watch the documentary, What is a Woman?
Yeah, I did.
Did you?
I was going to bring that up before the podcast because you said that people will shut down if they start to really get into things. And I think there was a professor on there that ended up being like, okay, we're done with this. And there was a politician that he was just like, he literally asked, what is a woman? And the guy wasn't able to answer that. And he just asked it again. And then he's like, we're done with this interview.
Oh, I watched it.
Yeah.
Anyone sitting at home, you absolutely should watch this. You should.
Regardless of your views.
Regardless of your views. I don't care if you lean right, if you lean left, if you're extreme right, if you're extreme left, if you're in support of something or against it. Just witness the way that you can't even have a conversation. Because the basis of the documentary is asking the question to many people, what is a woman? Which to me, that's why I was like, I need to watch this. I was scrolling down, and I came across that. And I had no idea if this is a propaganda film. I have no idea if this is a left thing, a right thing. I had no idea. But when I read the question, what is a woman? I was like, how do you make a documentary off that? It's the simplest thing ever. Like,
Yeah.
What do you mean? It's Stacy. It's an adult female. That's a woman. What do you mean, what is a woman? So I was like, I'm going to watch this. It was like a Saturday night. I was waiting for the fights to come on. I go, I'm gonna take a look at what's going on here. You know what I mean? Because I'm fascinated by things. I'm fascinated by, especially as it gets more detached from reality, because I try to base all of my life around the truth and all around reality. So when things start to get detached, I'm fascinated by them because I say, like, how does someone justify this? How do they live in this illusion? Why do they do this? What comfort does it bring? Etc. I watched that documentary and I was speechless, Johanan. That woman with the blue hair sitting in the chair being like, but we can just press pause on your puberty at this time and we'll put you on these blockers and da-da-da. And then, what are you right now as a gender and what would you like to be? What is more exciting? And like, that woman's a lunatic. That woman is a lunatic. And just because she's gone to school and she's gotten an education, people are going to be willing to listen to her. I've witnessed a lot of people in our society, not to go off on a separate tangent, just because someone is credentialed, all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, then they preach the gospel. Listen here. I don't give a shit how credentialed somebody is. They can still lie. They can still have terrible morality. They can still be a bad person. They can still preach horrible things.
And even if they don't have bad intentions, the books that they read were written by people with intentions. So, like, even if they're a good-intentioned person that wants to help people, everything that they're learning in the field of medicine was created by somebody. And there's money, a lot of money in that field. Pharmaceuticals.
Look at some of the lawsuits in pharmaceutical history.
Yeah, and like that structure, you cannot argue that doesn't shape how medicine is practiced.
100% it does, without a doubt. But what I meant to say with that is, listen, there can be a kid that didn't even graduate high school that can explain the truth. They could put together a phenomenal argument for something. They
Then there's a whole
they could know
documentary.
right for wrong.
Yeah.
But there could also be a person with their master's that could do the same. But you cannot treat people just based on a credential because that can lead you astray. Mm-hmm. Just like, listen, there's politicians that are probably trying to do the right thing, but there's politicians that are not. And I don't necessarily think it's just people that wear a D next to their name or people that wear an R. It's about the human being that's there. And we've gotten in this state of like, and I hear it all the time, like, well, I'm not an expert on the topic, so I can't even have an opinion. That is an incredibly disempowering thing. And what you are doing is giving up your power to someone that could have an agenda, that could lead you astray, that could move things in the wrong direction. But anyway, so let's get back to this. I watched this documentary. I'm speechless. Because, listen, I knew a lot of crazy ideologies exist in the world, and I'm not shocked by that. But to witness the extent, like that college professor might have been the worst for me on the entire documentary, except maybe the people literally doing the castration surgeries and stuff and, on children. But that guy was just so out of touch with reality, and he's a man in a university supposed to be teaching higher education, teaching truth, teaching someone how to work their way through incredibly complex problems. And he was just teaching his own agenda. I don't know what you'd call it. And in his mind, I guarantee you he justifies that he thinks he's doing the right thing. I guarantee you he believes that, like, no, this is progress. No, it's not. Confusing children and young adults into who they are and giving them all these, like, well, you can have, you could change the chemicals of your body and that would make you happier. That is a slippery slope to go down. So after I watched the documentary, I grabbed Stacy. I said, babe, you got to watch this. Maybe I'm getting pissed off or bothered by something that I shouldn't. Let's have conversation after. But I want you to watch it, and then we can have conversation. She watched it, and the exact same reaction. She was like, this is insanity. Mm-hmm. Stacy likes to stay more detached, okay? Like, I'm very involved in a lot of things in the world. I like to be involved. Stacy's just like, you know what? Keep the crazies outside and let them do what they want to do. We'll just make sure we do better. But when her and I were talking, we were aligned on so many of these things. And she says to me, she said, listen, when I was a young girl, she's like, I was a tomboy. I wanted to play all the sports. Like, I had brothers. I wanted to be like them.
My sister was too.
She was like, I wanted to be a boy. She's like, if some therapist or doctor or anyone like that would have come to me as a young, impressionable child and been like, you know what? See how you like to do all these things and you like to play sports and you feel like you should be a boy? We can turn you into one. We can do these different things and make you a boy. She's like, I would have done it. She's like, as a young, impressionable kid, I would have been like, oh, my life will be better if I was a boy for sure. She's like, you easily could have persuaded me. She's like, and now I would be destroyed because I am so thankful to be a woman. I just was able to reassign in my brain that, like, I was just a girl that loved things that society deems a little bit more masculine.
Mm-hmm.
I loved a lot of things, you know, that society at the time was like, no, women should play with dolls or do this, that, or the other thing. Whereas I wanted to be throwing around a football or riding a dirt bike. She's like, but someone could have absolutely destroyed who I am as a person by trying to pretend that they were helping me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I think we're going to have a generation of kids that get slaughtered by this because young little kid that's misguided, figured out Santa Claus wasn't real only a couple of years ago, is all of a sudden being told, you're probably just born in the wrong body. We can change that for you. Dude, that is terrible. Keep that away from my kids. Keep that away from kids in my community. Now, don't get me wrong. And I'm going to say something that I think is super progressive. If you're an adult and you want to live your lifestyle like that, I want you to do what makes you happy.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't infringe upon other people and it doesn't damage the people around you, you're not trying to harm other people. I want you to live your life in whatever way makes you happy.
Yeah.
But the moment you start saying, but then you have to accept this and you have to do that, that's where it is. It would be as wrong for me to do that to you.
Yeah.
If you want to live your life that way as an adult and I start coming around and going, you know, you're a terrible person. I can't believe you're living like this. It's not my place. It's not my place. I don't know how much further we can go into this.
No, yeah, it's fine. But they did. I mean, one of the things that bothers me is it's so inconsistent. Just at a practical level, they just raised the legal age for tobacco to 21. Why are we allowing not even teenagers to make life-altering decisions when they can't chew tobacco or smoke cigarettes? Like, what? The same people, I assume the same people are probably making these decisions. Like, what's the explanation for why they're able to make those decisions, but they aren't able to smoke cigarettes?
Well, I remember society turned on cigarettes. You remember that? Like, there was that huge push initially where they started putting all those commercials out with all the bodies.
The Marlboro Man.
They turned against cigarettes. Yeah. After. At first, it was like they pushed in society that cigarettes are cool. Yep. I remember reading an article from way back in the day that said, like, doctors found that cigarettes were not likely to increase, you know, your health risks and blah, blah, blah. Listen, they can fudge studies.
There's some doctors for you.
There you go. There's some doctors, okay? Yeah. So there's the guy to not listen to. But they had literally produced their own studies that were funded by the tobacco industry saying that, like, oh, look, it's not really proven that this is terrible. Society shifted, though, and it said, no, we don't want cigarettes in the hands of our kids. We need to shift society real fast and say we don't want to damage children before they're adults in a way that is irreparable, that can't be taken back. You know what I'm saying? And again, I don't want to shift this podcast to be too much about that, but what I'm going to say is if you are listening to this podcast, you should absolutely watch that documentary. I don't care what way you lean. I don't care what your thoughts and opinions are. You should know some of the, you know, things that are being preached across the nation, and you should know what misguided empathy and misguided emotion can lead to, because it's going to affect all of us. Little Joe is going to grow up in the world that we provide for him. So in the beginning of this podcast, when I pushed back against like the OnlyFans girls and I felt you push back to that, just remember any pushback that comes from a place of, yeah, but I want to like support other people and do the right thing and let them live their life.
That's my son's world.
That's your son's world.
Yeah.
That's your children's world. That's your grandkids' future. So there is a time to put our feet in the ground and say, listen, as an adult, you can I don't believe in heaven or hell or anything like that, but if you want to run your life into the ground, if you want to go to hell or you want to create hell on earth for yourself, run it. Do it if that's what you want to do to your own life. But you will not shift the culture so that my grandchildren or the future generations are going to live in that existence that you've created. That's where people need to say no, because it's easy to be distracted when it's like, well, you know what? I'll just protect my family. I'll just make sure that my kids don't do this. No, you're not protecting anything. If you don't voice up against things that are not healthy for culture, it's coming. It's coming regardless. And it's got the backing of mega industry.
Yeah.
Mega industry is backing this. I saw a clip from a Disney thing from like 2018 the other day that made me sick. I couldn't believe what I witnessed. I'm not even going to go into that, but it's like the only way we can really say no to a massive cultural shift that's coming from the top is men like you and I and women in the community that care about their family saying like, no, not for our kids, not for our community, not for our state, and then not for our country. But it has to come from the ground up. So I know there's always that sense of, we have this weird feeling like to be good people, you have to support other people in whatever they do. As I'm getting older, I just disagree with that.
Yeah, because even as a parent, like it's like tough love. Like, I may not be right about everything, but the things that I feel strongly about, I'm like, I know that tough love has a place because I've seen it with my kids. Like, I've seen my son when I try to, there's soft parenting or gentle parenting now, which is, some people say you should never say no to your kid. And I'm like, my son, I love him, and he's brilliant for 3 years old. He can talk, and he's incredibly intelligent, but he's still a moron because he's 3. He's only had 3 years to live on this earth. And some of the things he does baffles me. And I'm like, oh, he's new to life, and he doesn't know how to execute. And, like, I have to give him tough love.
And you are the role of protector.
Yeah.
Your job is to protect your child and build them up correctly.
Yeah.
Not let them do whatever they want. They don't know what they want. They only know from a 3-year-old perspective of what they want.
Yeah.
They're not a 30-year-old person looking back and reflecting about like, man, I can't believe I had no structure in my life. I can't believe I never learned right from wrong really because my father never brought his hand down. I can't believe that I was so misguided and spoiled and entitled and didn't understand the word no. It destroyed my life. I grew up to be an adult that had no sense of reality at all. The first time I was rejected by a boss or a girl, my whole world shut down. I went into deep depression. I fell into drugs because I had never experienced being told no growing up. Your job is to protect him for the long run, not the short term. He might be a little upset if you tell him, no, do not do that again.
Yeah, he always says, Dad.
It's a learning lesson, man.
Yeah.
Did your father ever do that to you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think to the stark opposite end, it was almost no kind of walking through scenarios. It was very heavy-handed with spanking. We always joke, I guess, of like me being spanked more than all the other kids. So I never learned to question anything. So it went the other way. Like he would always say like, say yes, sir. And I was like, yes, sir, And after a while, I just responded that way. I stopped questioning him. And then when I started becoming an adult, I had severe anxiety because I was like, you know what? I'm going to tell my dad what's up. Like, I disagree with him here, here, and here. But then I'd get around him, and it's like this, 18, 19 years of just programming of, like, dad's right. Like, he's got an opinion. That one's solid. I say yes, sir, to that. And now I'm finding a good pushback. But for a while, I was like...
And that's becoming your own man. That's really stepping into your power. You have to find a way to fight the father type deal. You have to find the way to say, no. I've got time on this earth now, too, and I've gone through lessons, and I've gone through military service, and I've gone through a lot of things. I have value in my opinion. I have weight. This isn't the 13-year-old kid telling you, Dad, I think blah, 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 which maybe then you should have brought the hammer down, but now you're going to respect me. Yeah. And that's like a good transformation, and what you just said explains a lot about you because you have an extremely strong resistance to authority now. You question a lot of things very deeply now. You're constantly like... It's almost like you had a rubber band effect. You probably lived under a certain way for so long that you naturally had to rebel super hard to find that central, like, healthy psychological state because just Johanan the follower will not bring greatness into the world. You're going to be just the drone that does what you're told in all your situations that, thumb on your head for the rest of your life. How do you really become the man that you're meant to be under those settings? You're not going to. But the crazy rebellion, destroy, anarchy, no authority, no masters type mentality is incredibly destructive too. Yeah. So it's like, in a weird way, and this is true about so many things in life, you almost want to experience the extremes of things, and then you can find the correct place to be on that line. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to a lot of people about, like, listen, for as much as I'm a good man now, and I really, I feel to the deepest parts of my core that I'm a great man, a great human being, someone that loves people, that cares about people, that gives my best to the people around me. You know what? There was many points in my life where I was a fragment of that. There was many points in my life where I did terrible things, where I did things where I hurt people, where I was, like I said, a shadow of the man that I could have been. But in a weird way, it was incredibly important to me becoming the human being I'm meant to be. Because when you experience the farther reaches of your darkness and of your light, your moral compass comes into play then. And you start to figure out, where do I belong? Where do I want to be on this scale? Like people that you hear motivational speakers talk about all the time, people that are not very dangerous, they like take pride in like, a certain thing. Yeah, because you're not very dangerous. You're not physically confrontational. You're not very powerful.
Jordan Peterson.
You don't have a lot. You don't have a lot of skills. So like, of course, you're staying on this benevolent side. But a lot of the times, resentment and hate and anger and all of these things can grow in people like that. From the boss that screamed in your face for 20 years, for the wife that's ran you into the ground, and for people that have walked all over you. You're a doormat every single day of your life, and then you finally self-destruct and explode because you always were living in this one thing. No, like you want to stretch yourself as a human being, but then that's where it really comes down to knowing who you are, and it being so vital to find yourself on the you have to make a decision to be a good person in this life. That's what's weird. And like that's the thing that I try to tell a lot of the younger kids that I'm around. You have to make an active choice almost daily to do the right thing. That's fucking tough. Mm-hmm. The only way you're going to do that is if it's really like melted into your spirit. Like it's to the deepest levels of your being, I should try to do the right thing for as much as I can. And I'm going to fail. And I'm going to have times where I make the wrong decision. And I'm going to have times where I hurt people. But to the fullest of my capability, I need to actively try to be a good man. That's not a message that's getting sent to a lot of these young kids. A lot of the young kids that I talk to, and the young fighters in here, they're misguided. It's chaos in front of them. No one's sitting down and telling them like, dude, look inward. What type of man do you want to be? Who do you want to be in this life? What legacy do you want to live? Because you can be an asshole. You can be a piece of shit. You can be a horrible human being. You can go around not caring about a single person other than yourself and leaving a wake of destruction. You can do it. And there's nothing really stopping you. And you know what? There might be influencers out there that are convincing you it's a good idea. You can be an absolute tyrant, but you can also be a great man. You can also be someone whose your energy affects the world around you. You can be a leader. You can be inspirational. But you have to figure out who are you and what do you want. I was just having a conversation with Tristan.
One of the
There was one other.
Jacksons.
Jackson Barlow. Yeah. I took them out to Sushi Zen for lunch. I had a free lunch. And I was like, guys, I'd love to sit down. Let's just have some talks about life. And two of the young men right now, or maybe three of them, are recently single. And they're going through that, like, James, I just think I want to be single for a while and hook up with a bunch of women and do whatever I want. And I think they weren't expecting this answer. But I was like, then do that. Do it for a while. Don't lie to someone. Don't start dating someone a little bit and then tell them that you're going to be with them and then go see a ton of other people. And don't do that. But go find out what that's like. Go hook up with every beautiful woman that you can. Live your life that way for a little bit. Find out, is that what makes me a man? Is this what I value? And then as soon as you start caring for someone a little bit and you rip their heart out and you hurt them badly because you're in your current process of just like, oh, just hook up or whatever, then you'll find out if that's who you are or not. And if it affects you very deeply and you go like, man, that was a great woman who was giving me good energy, who cared about me, and I just like trampled her. Is that who I am? Then you'll start to learn more about yourself. But you got to go and venture. You got to seek. You got to find out. Because I can tell you guys right now, like, listen, man, find a good person that builds you up, that enhances your life, that brings love and energy and support. And, like, go for your goals with that person. That doesn't mean anything to you. You almost have to burn yourself on the stove. You have to put your hand down and go, oh, my God, that's terrible. I don't want to do that anymore. And, like, a lot of times I feel like in our culture, people are afraid to do that because they're going to be judged. They're going to be viewed poorly. So then you have these people that in their mind, they have things that they want. They have desires that they have. They have fantasies that they want to live out. They, like young Ty, who wants to live out the fantasy of just, I'm going to just hook up with every hot girl I can and life is going to be great. He doesn't know all the down that comes with that. He doesn't know all the loneliness that comes in that. He doesn't know what it's like to have nobody that gives a shit about you at all because that's the type of person that you're being. He almost has to go through it to learn it. So me just saying, don't do that, Ty. What does that mean? So I told him the opposite at lunch. I said, do it, guys. 100%. Go all in. What I'll tell you during the process, is if you're good men, try to cause as little damage as you can. Be upfront with people. Be honest, man. If you're going to just hook up with girls, tell them, I'm not going to be in a relationship right now. I'm telling you, I got out of a couple long ones. I'm trying to dedicate to myself. I'm being selfish right now, as you would call it, but I'm just dedicated to myself. And if you're okay with that and you just want to have fun and we want to have a good time together, we're going to do that.
Cool.
But be honest.
Yeah.
And that messaging, I think, is not coming down often.
Yeah, my pushback with those guys, especially since I know them fairly well, is maybe ask your question when that's happening, when you're hooking up with girls. Do those girls deserve my time? Because those guys are awesome, and those guys are going to be incredible humans. But if they're devaluing their time to just say like, hey, yeah, like this is worth my time, I'm like, is it? Because you guys are all amazing, and if you value your time enough and who you are enough, you'll be very picky with who you allow into your circle, who you allow to affect your life. Because regardless of if it's one night, it may have a little bit of effect, but it has an effect, and you're allowing that into your bubble. You're saying they're good enough, or this is good enough for me. And I'm not sitting up here on a pedestal, but I look at it, I don't probably love myself or value myself in the same way, but I'm looking at them, I'm like, you guys, all four of you have potential to be great men. Maybe that's fighters, maybe that's just men. But make sure the woman that you're spending your time with
1,000%.
what you're looking for.
And let's say the hero version of yourself. That's what Joe Rogan calls it. The hero version of yourself that really maximizes this life and makes an incredible impact, and you become such an amazing father and friend and leader, and just really you bring out your greatness. Is that what he does? Is that how he acts? Is that how he treats people? It's not. And you know what I mean? And I say that to those guys, but it's like you almost sometimes need to let the person touch the stove one time to see that, like, wow, that isn't what I want. And you know what? Better now in your early 20s than to go live the way that society is telling you to do, or the way that we're suggesting. Get married to someone. Your heart's not in it at all. That dark voice in your mind has been whispering all these years saying that you should have done this. You should have just gone out and done this and this and this and this. And now you destroy your life at that part. Man, listen, find out that it's not what you want. And if I can inspire them to be better, that's always my goal. You've been around me enough to see that, like, I try to the fullest of my capability, and I wish I could have more time with the people because I think I could make an even bigger impact. But I try to inspire them like, dude, there's greatness in you. And you know what greatness looks like. Yeah. Why wouldn't you bring it to life?
And I know all of those guys have heroes, and I would just say, and I have to ask myself this, what do I admire in a hero? Is there anybody that is a hero in your life that you admire that they do that? Or is it because they're doing great things? Tristan's a big fan of Muhammad Ali. I am as well. Why was Muhammad Ali great? Why does he deserve time for you to research and learn about somebody who's dead now? Like, why is that important to you? It's because of the greatness that he lived out. Kobe, I know, is another one. Tristan has a lot of role models, and has a potential to be very influential. I know that. But are his heroes aligning with what he's wanting to do in the here and now? What he saw from them and what he wants to replicate in his life, is that carrying over?
You know what we need more of, man? We need more of good men and good women getting together and just having these conversations about what the hell makes us our best. What does greatness look like? In a society that is laying pitfalls and traps in front of you every single second of the day, what does it look like when we really transcend that? When we are radiating a frequency completely beyond that, where we see the pitfalls, we see the traps. You look at scrolling the Instagram thing for 3 hours as a complete waste of your energy, potential, time, effort. You see all the things that society is preaching, and you say, that's not what I'm doing, not for my family, not for my community. We need people coming back together because, again, we're living through the portal, and the portal's not real. You know what I mean? It's leading a lot of people astray. And like the ones that get propped up are the ones that are willing to be the extremists, or the ones that are willing to do some outlandish shit. And you and I would be the first people to say, do the opposite. Don't be that. Be someone that is followed genuinely because of who you are. Muhammad Ali's greatness resided in his unbreakable will, his humanity, his defiance of authority when the time was right. I mean, he stood up to the U.S. government. Was like, I'm not going to go kill some poor people in the mud for big, powerful America. Not going to.
The courage that he had to say he was the greatest before he was the greatest.
Have you ever heard the quote, I hope you don't meet your idols because they'll disappoint you? That is an incredible truth about the world, because so many times we prop the wrong people up in our minds and we embody or we envision what we believe them to be. We believe a narrative in our mind of who those people are. And then you meet them and you realize they're so incredibly flawed and they don't live and act out the way that you would want a hero to be. It's like, okay, well then who better to take on that responsibility of being the hero than you? Why in the hell are you going to judge someone else and say, oh, he should have been this or he should have been that, when you're not doing those things in your own life? When you're not living up to your potential, when you're treating people way less than, what you're capable of, when you're giving less to your relationships than you should be, when you're not pursuing your greatness, but yet you're judging someone else for not pursuing theirs. Who better than you? You know what I mean? Men and women need to hear this more. What does the hero in your story look like? And why the hell are you not trying to become them?
Yeah. It's tough. It's like you said earlier, it's a decision you make every day. I often don't make the right decision. Probably most of the time I'm trying to figure out what that is. But that's all part of the process of learning to question things and learning what is reality for me. What do I want in life? And I think I think the reason that Jordan Peterson is so influential in people's lives is because he reminds them, like, hey, you have great potential here. The world and the media don't want you to understand that you're all leaders. You're much more lucrative as followers. But if you can lead, you will stand out, especially in this day and age. Like with my new job, I have imposter syndrome because I'd never done sales before my previous job ever. And now I'm making I'm making six figures at least. And it's bananas to me because nobody wants to work. The men that decide to stand up, the world's your oyster right now because you don't have a whole lot of competition. That social media barrier catches a lot of people. It's got a very fine net, and it catches most. So when people stand out, they've made it past that. And, there's not a whole lot of people that are going to be competing with you at that point.
You just said the perfect thing. More people need to be told, you have greatness in you. It is your responsibility to bring that out. The world is going to do everything in its power to destroy that. The world is going to try to make you a follower. It's going to try to make you a slave of the system. It's going to try to rip your voice out from you. It's going to try to disempower you. It's going to try to make you so fearful of making a mistake that you will not step up and move forward in the right direction. And what you need to be told is it is your responsibility to bring the greatness out in you to this world because the world needs it. Your children need it. That's why I pushed back on you so hard at that one point early in the podcast. Your children need the greatest Johanan that can come to existence. And it's not just quietly living in your home, hoping that the wolf doesn't try to enter. It's standing up proudly for who you are, what you believe in, your efforts in the community, yourself as a man, as a father, as a husband, all of those things. That is desperately needed. And if we took it back and we presented it to people, it's on you. No matter what the media tries, they can't really do anything if you decide to change. No matter what the system sets in place to try to destroy your ambitions and destroy your life, they can't really do it if you put your foot down and refuse. What they're counting on is you're weak. You're too fearful. You don't have what it takes. They're counting on that. Because if you get your shit together, then maybe your family starts to get their shit together. And then maybe the community starts to get their shit together. And then more and more people, it's a tidal wave. All of a sudden, things can drastically change. So I guess the number one message you'd want to keep out of people's hands is you have greatness in you and the ability to transcend all the bullshit and live an incredible life, but you got to know who you are.
Yeah.
And you got to be willing to fight. You got to be willing to fight, not even physically, mentally, whatever it is. You got to stand in the spotlight. That was one of the things I talked to people a lot about in 2020. The only reason I felt like I could stand in the spotlight is because I'm not afraid. I'm like, I don't have horrible parts of my character that I'm trying to hide away from people. I don't have terrible things that are happening outside of the walls of this gym that I don't want people to know about. I don't have a fear of them bringing a magnifying glass and saying like, well, who are you? They shine a light on you because that's what it is. That's what people are terrified of. I'm going to shine a flashlight on you and say, well, who are you to say these things, Johanan? How dare you stand up? I had no fear of that. I said, man, look all you want. I'm a man genuinely trying to do the right thing, who has conviction, who has passion, who will adamantly refuse anything that is not for the good of my future and our society's future. Well, if we have more of that, the system is going to really struggle to make the impact that it has, because strong men are the resistance, and strong women too. But throughout history, let's say strong men are really the resistance. And nowadays, like, being strong men is almost a bad thing.
Yeah, the toxic.
Remember toxic masculinity?
Yeah.
Which now every time I've tried to have a conversation at all about anyone that preaches that, it's real wishy-washy. Because it's like, well, we don't mean strong men. And it's like, well, what do you mean? Well, toxic men. Okay, so that's just toxic. That's just bad people.
Toxic people.
We've been against bad people forever. Why all of a sudden is it toxic masculinity? Because men are more capable of being violent? Is it? What? But that's just bad men. But who stops bad men? Well, good men, right? Like strong men should be what stops toxic men. So if anything, you need way more masculinity and way more strong men. I'm counting on you to be your best. You're counting on me to be my best. That's like an unspoken agreement we have. It's just as friends, but like, I'm counting on that. Because if I stand up as a man that's trying to do the right thing for the community and stuff, I need to know that there's other people like me that are going to go, you know what? We got your back, bro. And you are counting on me, because let's say I sell out. I sell out who I am. I sell out what I stand for. I don't care about the future. I get some big offer of money, and I take that and I give away my character. Shit, man. You just lost another troop. You just lost another person that should have your back. Another idol let you down. Not that I'm your idol or anything. But I'm saying another man that you at least had admiration for let you down. Now how much harder is it to stay on course? I've never thought about it this way. But I'm like counting on my students to be better than I was, to be better than I am. I'm almost like counting on the fact that I can inspire them to be even better than I could ever possibly be. You know what I mean? And like, that's almost an unfair weight to put upon them, because they have to want it too. And I'm not even talking about a martial arts. I'm talking about as a human being. I regret all the times I've hurt people. I regret all the times I was lesser than who I had the potential of being. So I'm trying to like build these young men into like versions of themselves, and women too, and into versions of themselves that, man, they can be proud of, that they don't have to feel that feeling of regret.
Yeah. And it's funny that you said that about you, like, relying on the fact that your students and the people around you are going to have to basically carry the baton, because you're going to pass it, and your legacy, if they all decide like, hey, I'm just going to subscribe to the social media that's overwhelming and it's easier, that ends. And like, your legacy does not carry on without somebody to carry it.
That is a powerful way of thinking about it. It's like everything that I've ever worked for to create, to make a difference, all of those efforts would be in vain if that baton isn't passed correctly. If my soldiers don't want to carry the torch, then all those words, all that effort was for nothing. And that's a terrifying thing, because I'm trying to make a difference. I have this strange calling within myself that I can't quite put my finger on where it comes from, that I just desperately want to make the world a better place for a lot of people. I want to make things better than the way they are. I want to be a voice of reason when things are chaotic. I want to be a figure of strength in times of difficulty. But it's not for me. It's not to be like, oh, isn't James Gray awesome? It's not that at all. It's to properly pass a torch and say, now, guys, do the same thing for other people.
And the difference with having a kid is you have a person in your life that does not decide whether or not they pass on the baton. The baton's strapped to them whether they want it or not. And we were talking about kids earlier, and that's heavy. Like, when you first become a dad, it's like, okay, no matter what, no matter if, we move here or there, or we make this decision or that, like, I'm his dad, he's my son, he will carry my name until if he wants to change it, or he'll pass it on to his kids. That's huge. And so whenever you ask me and you give me pushback on those things, like my wife, my kids, I'm like, that is that is the reality that I'm faced with. Like, my decisions affect his reality forever.
Everything about you is going to affect him. The man that you bring to life, the whatever version of Johanan that you choose to create, is in that little child's mind his father. The legacy that's passed down, the torch, the standard to live up to, the inspiration to take from. If you become a shell of that, why shouldn't he just become a shell of himself?
Yeah.
You showed him that's exactly what you did. You became a shell of yourself, so why is it wrong for him to do it? Versus if you become a passionate, burning flame in his life that he says, man, look at my father. In all this chaos of the world, and all of the misguided people, and all the figures that I could choose to look up to, I look up to my father because what a man. That's what a weight that bounces back to you. But man, that's why it is necessary that you bring the best version of yourself to life. And you better put your foot down with everyone in your life. And you know, like, it's a super difficult thing to do with, like, even your wife, where you have to say, like, listen, it is my responsibility to be great for our son. Not just for you, for our son, for our children. It is my responsibility to be great. I need you to help me with that. I can't be great without your support.
Yeah.
I need it. I can turn into a shell without your support. I can turn into a broken version of myself without your support. I can be way lesser than what you deserve. But if you want me to bring out my greatness, I need you. And you know what? I want to bring out your greatness. And if we do that together, we are a light in a time, a beacon, a guide for our children, for our community, for many other people.
Yeah, and that's what you mentioned earlier about church being so good for community and everybody going in the right direction. And, you know, for lack of a better term, you said, like, America needs Jesus, you know, in kind of your joking way or your tongue-in-cheek way. Marriage is more threatening to leadership that wants to shape how culture moves, because you have one other person that you're in it for the long run with in life. And if you guys decide nothing's going to break you, there's not anything out there that can stop you, especially somebody like me and my wife. Like, we're both volcanoes, but, like, if you point two volcanoes in a direction going the same way and they're not pushing against each other, it's a nightmare for somebody who's trying to control those.
100%. And it's incredibly powerful. And you guys the world is your oyster, and there are no doors you can't open. And that's something I was actually telling a couple in here. I'm not going to say who they are in case they don't want their things aired on the podcast, but they've been struggling a little bit lately. And I said, the number one thing I want you guys to remember, if you love each other, is it's never you against her or you against him. It's only you guys against problems between you two. You guys are proactively trying to solve the problems in the middle. You're not against her, and you're not against him. You're against what is the issue that we are trying to combat. And with that, let's try different methods. Let's try different tactics. If it's a war and you got this difficult problem you're trying to solve, you employ different tactics, and then you gather information, and then you analyze the information, and you look at the results, and you try to figure out, how do we conquer this thing? But first, you got to view yourself as a team. If you view yourselves as separate entities battling one another for common ground, for, like, let's say she wants to move the needle this way and you want to move it this way, you're almost like destined to fail at that point, because every little bit it gets pulled to this way, you are feeling effects negatively, and you're feeling more broken down, or you're becoming more broken down. Or maybe let's say you become the ultimate yes man, and you're just like, yeah, whatever you want, blah, blah, blah. Now you're a shell of yourself, and you're lesser than what she deserves, and you're lesser than what your son deserves and your children deserve.
Yeah.
You're not fighting over ground between. It's not a tug of war. She doesn't have a rope on one end, you have it, and you're like, no, we need to come this way. And she's, no. It's two people looking at a complex problem and saying, like, how do we develop a solution for this?
Yeah.
And if you guys can get that type of mindset, that's the game changer. That's, like, one thing I feel like Stacy and I have learned over the last couple of years is, like, our communication has improved dramatically, which I don't know why it really did. I don't know what really the turning point was. Well, we nearly split. We almost got to a point where her and I were going to go different directions. And then for whatever reason, we came back to, I love you, you love me. Our communication definitely needs to improve. And although we don't want to have difficult conversations about some of these issues, we have to tackle the issues. Because if we don't, it is clear they're going to rip us apart. And do you want that? No. Do I want that? No. since we developed our communication to be way higher and we're willing to have the difficult conversations that normally you'd want to avoid, our relationship is so much better. So that's like a lesson I'm trying to pass to other people is you two are fighting problems. You're not fighting each other.
Yeah. Do you apply that same kind of mentality towards your relationships with your professional fighters or people that you work with professionally, where you kind of meet, you're between a rock and a hard place, and you're like, man, like I really feel like we're at odds at everywhere we turn at this point. Would you give that same advice for something like that? I only use you because that's kind of.
To be honest, I've learned a tremendous amount about myself and about coaching in the last 2 years due to failed relationships I've had with professional fighters, especially people that got to a really high level, because I am an incredibly encouraging, supportive, build you up, don't want to break you down, encourage your greatness, push. I'm constantly trying to elevate you and allow you to get off the hook when you're not really giving your best. I'm very prop. Well, what ends up happening is a lot of times people get to a point, I'm not going to use someone in particular, but this recently happened. One of my most profound moments as a coach came from analyzing a situation, a fallout that I had with one of our pros. And I realized I've never really called the person out that bad. I always you know what? Because they were in their early 20s. They were struggling through a lot of things in their personal life. They were still trying to give their best in here. And I just wanted to be the light, encourage them, build them up, be there for them. But because I never held them accountable and I never really was yo, this shit you're doing is unacceptable. This is terrible. This is less than a world champion standard. This is a joke. This is a fragment of who you really are, what you should be doing. You know what I mean? It's almost like it gets to a point where it's a little problem initially, and then it gets bigger, and then it gets bigger, and then it gets bigger. Well, I didn't confront it at all the stages while I was building this monster. It's like a kid that you never give discipline to. Problem, it's not that big of a deal. Let him go. He's fine. I'm not going to say no to him right now. The problem gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And now when you go to call someone out that's up at this level that you've never really sat down and been you are messing up badly. Your character has been disgusting compared to who I damn well know you to be. They can't handle it. It's too much. It's too much at once. What I've learned about being a coach is, and what I will definitely do with this next generation of fighters, is they're going to be held accountable way earlier on in the process. And they might get angry. They might get upset with me. They might not like what I have to say. But it will yield a much better product long term. And I think they will feel way better about themselves. Because you don't like tough love. People don't like medicine when they have to take it. You don't like when your father was really coming down on you when you were in the wrong. You're like, why are you treating me like this? It's so unfair. I can't believe you would do this. But then when you look back years later, you go, damn, my father kept me out of a lot of bad situations, kept me a lot away from a lot of things that wouldn't have served me well. Even though I didn't understand his methods or I hated his methods, I'm a good man. And you know what? It's a testament to your father. You're a phenomenal human being, man. I meet a ton of people. I meet so many people, it's hard for me to remember their names because I meet so many people. You are really a cut above most. You are an extremely high caliber human being. You're cut from a different cloth. A lot of that tough love and a lot of the things that came up, and maybe his processes weren't always the best, but it shaped the man that sits before me today. So what I've realized with my next generation of fighters is I need to do the same thing. I need to hold them accountable. I need to be the strict parent. People hate strict parents while they're growing up. But then generally those are the ones that end up being successful people that are on top of their game, that know how to be responsible, that got their shit together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've learned it tremendously as a coach.
One of the things I was thinking when you were talking through that, and you used the analogy of pushing them up, nobody really appreciates what happens whenever they get in the bottom of a skyscraper and they take an elevator to the top. But I hear one of the best feelings in the world is being able to climb a mountain and stand on top of it after you spent the time that it took to climb that mountain. And if you are constantly pushing them up, they forget how to climb, or they didn't have to climb. They didn't have to traverse this incredible experience to get to where it is, because they've just been getting help the whole time. And I think that's true for everything.
I love that analogy. I'm going to use that.
Okay.
I'm going to literally
Right.
say, listen, bro, yeah, I can make your life a lot easier. I can do all these things for you, and I can give you the elevator to the top of the skyscraper. But if you don't know how to climb the stairs, eventually you're going to get knocked down by life, which will happen. The elevator is not going to be able to, it's not going to be in service at that time. I can't just prop you right back to where you were, and you don't know how to climb. You don't know how to get up the stairs. And it's so, there's a strange phenomenon that happens that you will learn this in your life too. A lot of the times, the people that you do the most for, you go so above and beyond for, you will inconvenience yourself dramatically to try to appease them. They will value the least. They will value you the least by far. They will have almost no appreciation for you at all, and it'll be expected. It'll be like, I can't believe you're not doing this now. They lose the sense of being thankful or like, having gratitude for you when you do the most for them. That's an extremely strange phenomenon.
Yeah, my wife said that she's started to feel that as being a mom. Because who do you underappreciate more in your life? Nobody than your mom. Your mom is somebody who's doing stuff.
This angel in your life that's always doing these things, well, then you just take it for granted.
That's mom.
That's
She
mom.
does that. Your mom. Sometimes your mom, because people know you're going to do things. They know you're going to give 110%, even though you had 2 hours of sleep and you drove 14 hours yesterday. You're here for training today. You're here. You're just here. You're James. But like, people will take that for granted based off of that, and that's hard for you because you're giving. Like, you love to give. You have this desire and this drive to give and train people. But
And what those people don't realize is I'm refueled by appreciation, by gratitude, by someone caring about me. It was such a weird revelation to realize, me and this pro fighter that had the falling out that we did, she doesn't give the tiniest fuck about me at all. After 6 or 7 years of, she came to me as a young woman with dreams, saying, hey, if you go all in for me, I'll go all in for you. These are my goals in life. I went all in to try to help accomplish them, became all these things. Countless times, hey, I need this lesson. I need 3 private lessons a week for free. I need you to be able to schedule time, here. I need you to shift your schedule whenever I need to. Okay. We'll make it happen. All right, let's go. You didn't, for me speaking to her, you didn't hold up your end of the bargain on this, that. Well, I'm this, that, and the. Okay, all right, well, I'm going to do blah, 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 blah. And then at the very end, that person does not care the tiniest bit about anything I had done for that entire journey.
well, if you
That is fascinating, though.
yeah,
Because I try to put myself in the shoes, and maybe the same would happen to me. And I think, like, if someone went all in for me, dedicated so much of their energy and effort and time and support, and just like, I'm going to help you make your dream come true, James. I'm going to make sure that I'm there by your side, and I'm going to let you off the hook. I'm going to be that prop. And then I get there and I'm just like, see ya. Thanks.
yeah,
It's me now.
yeah.
I can't understand that.
Well, if you start giving tough love with this next generation incrementally, like, you will find those people will weed themselves out much earlier. Like, you will not be as busy as you probably were because you will be having times where you're checking in and being like, I'm going to lay it down here. Let's see what the reaction is. And then eventually, like, you're going to know where people stand, and people are going to know where they stand with you. And then they're going to know that there's healthy boundaries in place where they're like, hey, James can't just wake up at this time or do this or move this. Like, because he's a coach, he's got a lot of shit going on. His stuff is just as important or more important than what my ask is right now.
I've had to learn how to say no. And honestly, it's been so good for me. In the last, honestly, even within the last year, man, I've had to learn how to say no when I'm getting overextended. And it was almost like for all the people that were ultra entitled, when I started saying, like, no, I can't do that, they were like, what? You know what I mean? What do you mean you can't do it? I've had to develop a relationship with the word, like, no. I can't go to that extreme. I'm running myself into the floor, and nobody's there for me. Nobody's there to prop me up, bro. It's like, hey, coach, why are you down today? You know what I'm saying? Like, no. I gotta set realistic boundaries, and that tough love. Listen, if you want to get out of here earlier on, it just tells me who I pour my energy into. I've set standards in the academy of certain things that can't exist outside of the academy. I've had to remove a couple people from the gym, and I've actually got a little bit of flack for it. I've had some people like, why in the world wouldn't you let them train here? And I'm like, well, domestic abuse doesn't belong in the building. well, this doesn't belong in the building. Well, this drug doesn't belong in the building. You know what I'm saying? And I don't give a shit who you are. I'm going to hold those standards now because we're something much bigger than just our competition record. We're something much bigger than just how many pro fighters we can produce. Do I even really want to give 1,000% to someone that's going to go on to be a professional fighter but a terrible human being? I don't know. I don't think so. And that's a weird thing to say.
Yeah, because your name's tied to them.
Yeah, listen, because at the end of the day, one side of your brain might be like, well, just, the more pros you can produce, the better. No, that's not what I care about in my legacy. I care about great people that made a difference, that did go super far in MMA, that were good for their community, that gave back, that were the beacon. Let's say I could have one giant asshole that was horrible to people, that was racist, that was this, that, and the other thing, but he could be UFC world champion. I can tell you right now on the podcast, I wouldn't want that. And that's weird to say because my number one goal as a coach is to produce a UFC world champion. Yeah. My number one goal. But I will not sacrifice who I am or what I believe in or the legacy for somebody to just achieve that goal. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't want a horrible human being even if they were capable of that.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe I'll never reach my goal because of that. Maybe I would cut out people that have a certain flame or darkness about them that can reach that level. My goal is so much, it's so transcendent, it's much bigger than MMA. Dude, I want people to look back one day, and I don't even know why this matters to me. We're all going to die, and I'm going to be just a plot on the ground somewhere. But I want people to look back one day and be like, the world was a little bit better, even if in a small fragment or a small area, because that man lived. And you know what? That man has to hold standards. What I realized through my 20s is, just going all in for every single person, for every single need they have, no matter what. Don't give a shit about yourself or what you need or the exhaustion levels you're facing. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I used to have endless energy. I'll admit it. In my 20s, if you ask anyone that knew me, I could do 60 million things every single day, and that was perfectly fine. Now, dude, I get run down. I get tired. I get mentally exhausted, especially from things where I'm like disappointed or like when someone hurts me or somebody lets me down. Like that stuff eats at my spirit, man, because it's like, dude, I am trying my best. There's one thing that I genuinely don't believe that anyone that knows me would ever say is that I'm not trying my best. Even if my best isn't, let's say I'm exhausted from this, whatever state I'm in, I promise you I am giving 100% of what James Gray has at that moment in time for the people in my life. You know what I mean? And like, I don't know why that matters to me so much, but it does. And like,
how do you do that? How do you replicate that? Is that a habit that you've built?
Honestly, and I've referenced this before in the past, it all comes back to how dark of a place I went to, man. I got to a point where I was incredibly close to killing myself, like writing a suicide note for my parents, and I had already thought about how I would kill myself, and I got to the very bottom, and something changed in me in that moment. Something changed in me and was like, you should keep living. And not only should you keep living, you should make a fucking difference. And not only should you make a difference, it should be something that you care about making a difference in, and you should be passionate about. And how many people are living with darkness in their life that if they just had someone that was there for them, that was going all in, that was, bringing that kind of spirit to their life when they didn't have it themselves, would live tremendously better lives. Something just clicked in me. I don't know what it is. My Aunt Di, you know her. I love her to death. She's an angel on this earth to me. When she was out here visiting last time, she got me to tear up pretty bad. And I cry like once a decade. Okay. It's like got to be a monumental thing, right? Since that darkness in my life from my teens, something just got broken, right? Like, but when my Aunt Di was out here, she looked me in the face and she said, I just want you to realize that you're just like your mother was. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, you know how you have this just unbreakable desire to try to help the people around you and love people around you and like build them up to being better versions of themselves. She's like, your mother was that exact person. She's like, the only reason I am where I am in my career is because your mother came over my house when I was at like my lowest and was like, get your ass up, get your things together. I'm taking you to these couple places to apply for a job or to go back to school. Like, you're going to get it together, Diane. And not only are you going to get it together, you're going to be successful. You're going to have a beautiful family. You're going to have a beautiful future. And she's like, your mother put me back on the track to get to where I am now. And then obviously my mother went on to commit suicide. But the way that she correlated that to me,
it's incredible.
Because I've never been able to understand that spirit. Since the bottoms of my darkness, I've had this crazy urge to make the world better. Versus before that, it was very like the me show. I lived life for me. I lived life for my own pleasure. I lived life for what I wanted. Something found me in like the very bottom. And it was like, you are going to make a difference. Or, you know what it was? I'm going to say this right here on the podcast. You're going to make a difference or kill yourself. That's how low I got. And it was like one of two doors. And then it was like, you're going to make a difference. And then from that point, I've just been on this mission, man. And I don't even know. It's not something you can teach, I don't think. People have to find something in themselves that makes them want to be that version of themselves. When I wake up in the morning, every day, I feel a weight of obligation to be great, to bring greatness to the world, to help my crew, to be kind to random people, you know, and Braden makes fun of me for it. Like, he'll see me, I wave at every person I see. Like, if someone drives by, I'll wave at them. I'll be polite to them. And he's like, why do you do that? At first, he used to make fun of me. He'd go, that guy didn't wave back. And I said, Braden, it's not about that. It's about what type of man do I want to be? Do I want to be the man that blows the man off that's driving by? Or when he's driving by past my house, I'm kind? What man do I want to be? You know what I mean? It's like I just wake up with this obligation of, you got one shot. And maybe because I know how finite life is, I've seen mortality so close to me multiple times. And I've contemplated my own mortality ending, that it's like, you have an obligation. When you wake up in the morning, what the fuck are you doing? And why are you not trying to be better? And that's the only way I can describe it to you. And I think until you can get people to find that for themselves, they'll never really tap into their greatness. Motivation can spark you. You might watch a podcast. You might watch a YouTube video that gets you kind of fired up. That comes and goes. You might have an incredible moment at the birth of your child where you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be the best father that I could ever be. You know what I'm saying? Like, you felt that. You get these little bumps, right? Where you're like, you feel what your greatness feels like to your core. And you're like, that is what I'm going to be now. That's who I am now. But then life just beats your ass and you start to get off track. If you can find a place within yourself where that feeling, the moment my eyes open every morning, I have a weight of obligation. I don't know why, but I have a weight of obligation to like, yo, you should try to do your best. Do your best. You know what I mean? And I think there's a secret in that. If you can find what it is deep in you that tells you who you're meant to be or what you should be or how you want to live this life, and you can live authentically in that spirit, dude, the world's going to be a million times better from your existence.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that terrifies me is I know what I'm capable of and I know what I want to do in this life, and I know it's possible because I know I've been successful at too many things to, like, I know how to be successful at things through hard work. And so it's right there. Like, the world is my oyster, and that terrifies me and that's why fighting attracts me, is because you're naked, almost physically and realistically, but also it's on you. And whenever I step in there, and especially since I won my first 2 fights, I was like, holy crap, I can do this. And then I was like, holy crap, I can do this.
That greatness starts to whisper in your ear, and that comes with a heavy weight. Hey, you can do this. Hey, you know that man you envisioned in your mind that changed the world, that's known, that leaves an incredible legacy for your children and blows away every expectation your family would have ever set on you, friends would have set on you, haters would put on you? You can be it. That is a incredible thing. As soon as people usually see something like that, they usually run from it. They run from it fast as they can be, and they need to get far enough separated so that they can't hear its words anymore. Because if you can't live with it, if you see your greatness, it can actually be the biggest tormentor in your life. If you witness a vision of what you believe yourself capable of achieving, and you start to see progress towards that, now if you're not progressing towards that, every single day there's going to be a tormenting voice in your mind going, you're letting it go. You're slipping away. You're giving up your dreams. That shit will eat you alive. There's a part of the book called The Alchemist. I don't know if you've read The Alchemist, but
Not.
there's
I've
an
heard of it.
amazing book. A part of the book where the man that's mentoring the young, like the main figure of the story, ends up saying to him, I actually fear that my life is going to be far worse now that you've come into it. Because now that you've come into my life, I see what my life could be or the greatness that I could become. And now I'm not going to be able to live with myself. So I hate you for it. He actually like almost was resentful at the person that came into his life because he said, now that you've shown me a vision of what I could be, I can't get away from it. I'm tormented by it. I wish I could go back to the way I was before it. And that's an incredibly powerful thing because that's what happens to you. If you get around the right people, around the right mentors and the right energy, it shows you your greatness. And then unfortunately, with that greatness comes extreme responsibility because nobody's bringing that greatness to the world. You have to do it. And guess what? It's going to be a heavy load. And it's going to be a burden. And there's going to be ups and downs and tears. But guess what? That greatness, resonates in your soul as what you're meant to do or what you have the potential of becoming. And that's a chilling thing, man.
It is. I get goosebumps thinking about it. And just like professionally, I've seen lately, I got a promotion as fast as anybody's gotten that promotion from under the boss I'm under now. And I'm like, okay, so I can win fights. I can be really good at Arabic. I can succeed in the military. I can make good money professionally pretty quickly with relatively no background. Like, now it's on you. Like, do you want it? Do you want to do it? And I am definitely at a crossroads right now. Things have been on a pause for having a kid and making sure my relationship stays solid moving forward. But it's pausing and taking any time away from this elite energy. It's like once you're out of it, you're like, fuck. Like, I haven't been elite lately. I've been running or I've been staying fit or I've been trying, but it's intimidating to step back into. And it's amazing. And like you said, like once you want to get as far away to not hear those voices anymore, because that's more comfortable than hearing that voice for the rest of your life of what if.
Bro, it's probably like heroin. No matter how much you try to escape that experience, once you've experienced a vision of what greatness looks like in your life and what really your best looks like, you can't get away from it. You can try to run from it. It's like the heroin addict that once they've had that experience, there's always that whispering voice in the back of their head that they cannot get away from. They're tormented by a substance. You're tormented by a version of what you damn well know you should bring to the world. It's a crazy thing, you know what I mean? And it's like maybe that's why so many people shun their greatness. Maybe that's why it's easy to give up your moral code or everything that you are, because the more you push yourself down, the more that voice can be silent. You know what I'm saying? The more bad choices you make, you're drinking alcohol every weekend, you're making terrible choices, you're getting fat, you're eating all this random shit, you're hanging out with people that are low caliber. Well, then it's easy not to. That voice is much more distant, right?
Yeah.
You don't hear it as much.
Yeah.
As soon as if you're around me, I'm going to affect you.
Yeah.
I'm going to affect you in the direction of like, yo, we're on a mission here, bro.
Yeah, you're infectious.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's going to affect you. And that can be damning to people because if they have roadblocks in their life that they don't find a way to get around, it's almost like it's tormenting. It's exactly like the book said. It's now that you came along and presented this reality to me or this vision, I almost hate you for it. I'm almost resentful because I'm never going to be able to escape what could be. Mm-hmm. So I either have to pursue it. And in the book, it goes on to say that that's why it is so incredibly crucial that you listen to your heart, because if you don't and you silence that voice, you lose your heart and your soul in the world. You let go of your divine purpose, whatever you'd want to call it. In the book, they refer to it as the personal legend. As soon as you give up on your personal legend, you're now a shell of what you were called to become. Because we all have these voices in our head or this vision. It comes from somewhere. Somewhere deep in your spirit is telling you, Johanan Dixon, you are the one. You are the person that can make the difference. Yes, countless people have failed trying. There's bodies scattered all over the place. There's all these people that can show you why it's too scary to chase your dream. But you might be the one. Dude, if you hear that voice one time, it permanently alters you. You know what I mean? But then again, dude, it's It's regular people that stay the course that accomplish incredible things. Look at we've had multiple kids, local community kids here, from almost day one to the UFC, to the highest pinnacle of combat sports in the world, just from local kids that stayed the course. There's not like this crazy recipe for success that people want to say. It's simpler than you think, but it's like trusting the path. It's letting go of the fears. It's letting that voice speak loudly into your ears in defiance of everything else. And it's structuring your life in a way that makes it make sense. You know what I mean? Because like the road to greatness is not an easy one. Otherwise, everyone would do it. And I genuinely believe, when you said earlier in this podcast, that like society is set up to diminish that greatness. You are not a good slave of the system if you chase your greatness. You are not. They want you to be a consumer so that they can live a lifestyle that they want. And a lot of those people they're not on a path for greatness. They're just greedy fucking, they want to have as much money and power and control as possible. So the more people they can just be rats of the system, the more it's going to prop them up.
Have you watched The Matrix?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I watched that like a year and a half ago, and I didn't realize like it has aged very well in this society. You know, basically all the special effects and everything are not what they could be, but the message there is more relevant now than it even was back then.
People are living in their own personal matrices, Johanan, and they don't want that matrix shooken up. And they want you to just fall in line and fit what they want in their matrix. They don't want Neo that starts bending what they think is possible and achieving levels that they didn't even believe could happen. They don't want that. They want you to just fit into their personal matrix the way that you're supposed to fit. Go to your job. We're paying you good money. Sit down in your cubicle or at your desk. Make your phone calls. Get your paycheck and shut your mouth.
Yeah.
And if you watch that movie through with like a metaphorical analysis of what it's trying to say, to like snap out of that personal matrix and step into reality, reclaim your power, it's a revolutionary film. It's funny that you brought that up because I was just talking to it not too long ago with my cousin Tyler. We were talking about the movie The Matrix, and I was making those same correlations. I'm like, listen, dude, it's exactly like that. It's almost like, you know how we jokingly call people like zombies and stuff, these people that are just asleep, that have given up on their dreams and their hopes and their goals, and they're just going from one activity. Those are the people captured by the Matrix. And you have these couple souls that are out there that are still, they're sparked awake. They're different than the average Matrix. They might be snapping out. You could be the one. You know what I mean? And like making life into a quest or a journey or some pursuit of greatness, that's what life is meant to be. We've just forgotten.
Yeah, and I really like the UFC, the way that they have things set up where they have multiple avenues for people to get into the UFC and fight up all the way up through. The reason I'm bringing that up is because I think if everybody decided to pursue their greatness, I don't think there's one champion in the UFC right now that would be the champion. I fully believe that there are the best and most capable people of being UFC champions have decided not to try.
100%. Or they allowed some basic things that life is going to throw in their way to stop them from getting to the top. Me and multiple coaches in this gym have known many athletes in the history of even this academy that were unbelievable, incredible. They had all the coaches are looking at them going like, they've got what it takes. They've just got to stay the course. And then life was able to get its hooks in them, or the Matrix was able to present them enough of a thing and suck them back into the system, and we lost them. And these are people that I genuinely believe would be millionaires with incredible platforms that are super influential figures that could preach about really pursuing greatness and what that looks and feels like, and could shape and change communities. And how many little young kids are going to look up to heroes? We looked up to heroes, man. A lot of them were sports athletes.
Oh, yeah.
And you go like, can I be great like that? Well, guess what? We need more of those people growing up, pursuing that greatness and being like, you absolutely can. And this is the method that I use. And these are the things that I avoided. And these are the traps that you don't want to fall into. And like countless people that have been around me are killing it. Look at Molly. Molly is on top of the world right now. I cornered her in Brazil. I flew down there on Thanksgiving because her coach wasn't able to go. She called me 3 days before the fight. I flew down on Thanksgiving, left my family to go corner Molly in Brazil. She had flown out here for our first ever female mega camp. I don't even know if she was a pro yet. think she was just turned pro. Just a young, passionate woman that was like, I'm going to make this life into what I want. I guarantee you. And she was very fiery and very like, through any trials or tribulations, because she had gotten knocked down many times. She had had days in training where she was in tears. But she was like, I'm going to do it. Now she's literally the queen of Liverpool of MMA. Yeah. She's going on the field with Liverpool FC. She's going to make millions of dollars. She just got signed with Barstool Sports. Molly is a literal inspiration for countless women in her city because she just stayed the course, man. She refused to believe in anything but herself. Juliana Pena. Unbelievable. Pulled off the greatest upset. I'm not even going to talk about the second fight. Whatever. She pulled off the greatest upset in mixed martial arts in history. Nobody thought Juliana Pena was going to beat Amanda Nunes. I have an incredible story where I believe you witnessed this. The week of that fight, I posted in the SFS and MMA group, and I said, listen, I know all of you.
I remember, yeah.
I said, I know all of you are counting out Juliana. And on paper, she shouldn't win this fight. But I'm telling you right now, Juliana has the strongest self-belief I have ever seen in a person. And I'm not kidding by that. I've met a lot of people. Juliana, if she tells you, I will run through the structural concrete wall that keeps this building standing, she genuinely believes it. Now, even if all,
Which
physics
is about the equivalent of beating Amanda Nunes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the physics of the universe and all the laws that we operate under and all of our understanding would say, Juliana, I love your belief in yourself, but you can't run through the wall. She would run at that wall full force and smash her face into it if she genuinely thinks that she's going to get through it. And I remember I posted that, and I said, listen, like, that's a trump card. When you have something that powerful within yourself, sometimes it's just hard to beat the person that does not quit.
Like Conor McGregor.
And when she beat Amanda Nunes, although I was shocked too, and I was like losing my mind in the fight, like, oh my God. Like as she sunk in the choke, I was screaming. I was like, there's no way this is actually happening. As soon as it happened, I was like, that's her self-belief. That was not her fighting skill. That was not her fight IQ. That was no matter what you throw at me, you will have to kill me in this ring or I'm going to fight to the last second. And like if that is not inspirational, I don't know what is. Here's the amazing thing is, bro, she's stayed at my house. She's flown out. She's trained with us multiple times. I did one of her weight cuts. I think, her UFC 200 weight cut in Vegas. I've been around her. I've watched her spar with ABC, and she's been in the gym, and I've watched her train with a bunch of people. She's good. Don't get me wrong. No, that's good is insulting her. She's great. But there wasn't, like, it's not like she levitated in the room and, massacred everyone and then levitated out. She's just a normal woman that believes in herself to the fullest, that stayed the course. Now she's probably already a millionaire from coaching The Ultimate Fighter. And because I know back in the day, Miesha Tate got $1 million contract just to coach the UFC or The Ultimate Fighter. Juliana Pena is going to be a millionaire. Did you see the picture of her daughter?
Yes. That was amazing.
Listen, the beginning of our podcast, we were talking about bringing your greatness to life because that's what your community and family deserves. That woman just shook up the world. That little daughter standing at her mother's side, facing off against Amanda Nunes. That is an iconic moment of UFC history. That little girl is growing up in a reality where her mother was the embodiment of greatness on one night. Not that she's not great in any of her other ventures. She has a lot of greatness. But in that one moment,
in history.
She was the embodiment of greatness, of resiliency. She was the quintessential example of what that looks like in its brightest. And now there's a daughter that is growing up in a world where that is my mother. Man, listen. Bringing greatness to life should be a responsibility that all of us want to take on. And it's not going to be easy. And you might have to venture into the dark and then say, wait a second. This is not it. That doesn't mean that you don't have the greatness still. It means you got off track. Get back on track. Get back after your goals. Go for the top. Because that version of you, imagine Juliana that stayed working at the bar, at a restaurant. She paid her bills. Maybe she got promoted. Maybe she's store manager. Maybe she's regional manager. She goes around, fills out paperwork, checks on employees. Dude, it's a fragment of who she should be. a fragment. So we've been going, by the way, we haven't even gotten into your military service. We haven't gotten into your job promotion. We haven't gotten into so many things, but I feel like I kind of knew we were going to tangent.
Yeah.
Here's what I'd like to ask of you, Johanan. We've recorded 2.5 hours of this podcast. Almost 2.5 hours, it looks like. We do a part 2.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
Because I feel like we've done so much, and this is already such a chunk. And if this turns into a 4-hour episode, it's just going to be too much for anyone to consume.
Yeah.
And I plan to break this down into different segments, but I feel like there's so much more. I want to talk about your military time. I want to talk about the growth that you had in the military. I want to talk about your brief stint with the NSA if we can, even if it's very surface stuff. That's a huge thing that I'd like to discuss.
Of course.
I'd like to talk about the couple jobs you had initially when you knew you're meant for greatness. I know you're meant for greatness. We jokingly used to call you the super soldier in here, and you never took the nickname, and I was never going to force on you. But you are. You have a certain element of greatness in you that is rare to see, and everybody around here knows it. Everybody around here be like, oh, man, Johanan is like, your only enemy is going to be you. If you stop fighting you, dude, we're just gonna ride a roller coaster wherever you want to go. But with that being said, I feel like there's so many things that I want to pull from. Why are you that man? How did you become that man? Where has life tried to lead you astray? How do you get it back on track? How do you meet the expectations of other people and what society is telling you you're supposed to be, while knowing there's a voice in your head saying like, you're the one. You can do it. You can go as far as you want. You want a UFC world title, you want millions of dollars, you want to travel around the world, you want to give your kid a life that they can't even imagine of. You want to be a grandfather that changes the entire trajectory of his family. Well, it's on you then, bro. We got to talk about all those things. So I think we wrap up part 1.
Okay.
We segment this, we clip this, we put it out there, and then we film part 2.
Sounds good to me, man. I would love to.
Awesome. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed the podcast today. I feel like I talk too much. I was actually getting bothered at myself sometimes because I was going. It's the Johanan podcast. It's not James's podcast, but I feel like we were both talking on things that are really important for people. And very soon, this is going to be one of the last segments I do where I'm doing interview style story format. My future podcasts are actually going to go more to like general discussions about
Topic
life.
Based,
yeah, and I actually think I'll bring 3 or 4 guests in at a time where we're all just going to really tackle concepts and ideologies together, especially if we can get a diverse group of people, because I feel like that's where the growth happens.
Do you think you're going to name it are you going to have a second podcast that's that and have this?
No, actually, because, think about the gray area is the place of discussion in between black and white. So it's almost like the gray area podcast to be a place where people from all different divergent ideologies discuss difficult topics. What a perfect way. And I'm willing to talk about anything. Politics, religion, current events, finding our greatness. You know what I mean? Anything. But I think real growth happens from deep, critical, analytical discussion.
I agree.
So, man, it was an honor to have you in the studio today. This thing to edit is going to be a monster. I can already tell by the file size, but I'm super excited for it. We'll definitely film a part 2. And part 2, we'll keep track on, like, build me up through the rest of your story and give me all the insights that you have to give based on your life experience. And then we'll kind of, maybe I'd love to have you as be one of the people that comes in during some of the multi-guest things as we tackle some of these deep topics and issues.
Sounds good, man.
So, man, pleasure having you in the studio, sir.